Good afternoon and welcome back to Save Time, Save Money Saturday. I'm Michelle Stinson-Ross with Offers.com. Our guest today is John McMillan of Hearth and Home Heating and Cooling. Good afternoon, John. How are you?
Well, Michelle, thank you. Doing great.
Would you mind taking a moment and telling our video audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, your area of expertise in the home heating and cooling industry, please?
Sure. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, state licensed air conditioning contractor in Florida. Been running a family-owned business here for, like I said, the last 25 years, and we've been in business for almost 40 now.
Cool. So when it comes to everything about air conditioning and keeping our homes cool, you're the guy to ask, right?
I hope so.
Well, let's get into this because my first question for you is, on average, how much money are we really wasting on AC every summer just because we don't do the things that we ought to be doing? What are we actually costing ourselves every year?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a multi-part answer, of course, but the biggest thing is inefficient air conditioners today can cost you more than 50% on your electric bill. So if you replace your existing system with a higher efficiency product, you could save anywhere from 40 to 60% on your utility bill. A lot of people don't realize how the savings add up, and the actual cost to a homeowner depends on how much your utility company charges you per kilowatt hour. So it's going to vary from state to state and region to region. In Florida, it's a huge expense. Our air conditioning systems run a lot more than, say, a home might up in New Hampshire or in the Northwest.
Okay. And it's not just high temperatures, but also the humidity, yes?
Humidity, absolutely. In the South, that's a huge problem, more so than up north. But air conditioning systems are really like one big dehumidifier. They run long enough to get the humidity out of the home and keep the comfort level where you want it. And it's not always about temperature, it's about the humidity in a home. So how well and how efficient that system operates is going to dictate how much money you can save or how much it's going to cost you in the long run.
Okay, so is that possibly one of the reasons why buildings and malls and restaurants in Florida are so freaking cold?
Yes. Unfortunately, we design air conditioning systems today to meet median temperatures. In Florida or in Texas or in the South, you can have temperatures exceeding 100 degrees in a day. The humidity can be 80+% humidity. If we designed a system that was going to cool that facility down to 70, 68 degrees during those peak times, the rest of the year is going to be freezing. Absolutely, you get water dripping down the walls, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. And commercial buildings especially, more so than a residential home, kind of have a higher heat load, so they overcompensate for all the doors opening and closing and all the bodies that are inside the facility.
Thanks for that insight. I know that was always something that when we lived in Florida, it's like, why is the mall so cold? My youngest child during school would actually take a sweater. I'm talking in August, she took a sweater to school because the classroom would be so cold because they were trying to compensate for, all of the traffic and the humidity and all that kind of stuff. But I digress. Let's talk a little bit about what a homeowner can do to save money and be a lot more wise about the heating, the cooling, the efficiency of our homes. Where should we look for drafts and other places that cool air can escape?
Wow, great question again. The single largest source of energy loss in a home or energy waste via air conditioning is through the duct system. And if it's not installed properly, not sealed correctly, you're going to lose a lot of energy into the attic, which is where you don't want it, because typically in most homes that's where the ductwork is run. So that's a huge, huge source of energy loss. Your windows, exhaust fans, you always want to get that hot, humid air out of the home so you don't have to keep reconditioning it. So if you have the proper exhaust, the proper sized air conditioning system, and make sure your windows and doors are sealed correctly. Those are some big areas that you can save quite a bit of money on your electric bill.
Okay, I'm sure I'm going to make you laugh with this one because it really hadn't occurred to me how important like the bathroom exhausts are when it came to keeping the place cool during the summertime. You know, when I think of the exhaust fan in the bathroom, I'm thinking just to deal with smell issues.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought if we're taking a shower or running a bath or whatever, we're adding humidity to the air. We really do need to turn those fans on, right?
Exactly. You know, I wish I could say it was all about the smell, but really it's about getting the moisture out of the bathroom. They're designed to get the humidity out, not so much the smell, although that's always important. You'll notice there are no return ducts in a bathroom. You only have a supply putting air in, nothing taking the air out. So if you don't have an exhaust fan, the air just sits there and it'll get pulled back into the air conditioning system of your home, and it just causes the humidity levels to rise and the system to work much harder to get that moisture out.
Okay, cool. What about like windows and things? What do we need to do? Granted, yes, if the windows are older, we might want to consider replacing those with more efficient windows. But aside from a full-on window replacement, what other things can we do to make sure that, you know, cool air isn't escaping?
Right, exactly. Yeah, windows are the single largest source of solar gain on a home. So the more windows you have, the more heat comes into the home, the harder your air conditioning system has to work to cool it down. Short of replacing your windows, great window tinting. Today, windows with the new energy code are double pane or triple pane, but most of us have a single pane glass that separates, you know, the inside and the outside. You can put your hand on that glass and feel a lot of heat coming through there, and all that heat is adding to the heat load of the building. So if you put some shading on the outside with window tint, an overhang, even plant a shade tree on the east-west elevation where you get most of that sun exposure coming in, it can go a long way for reducing that solar coefficient on your home, that heat load.
Okay. And you mentioned one other place that cool air escapes that just kind of like, oh, I never thought of that. And that was actually the light fixtures in the ceiling. Can you explain that one a little bit?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of hard when we were tweeting earlier to get into all those details, but in most homes today, we have can lights. You know, the ceiling lights that are stuck in the kitchen, and you got the bulb that goes into those, and they're just cut into the drywall. And all of that air inside your home, inside the cooling envelope, escapes through those little holes around those windows or those can lights, and it escapes into the attic. Because the air conditioning system is going to pull the ductwork and the heat, the difference in the heating and the cooling, is going to pull a lot of that cold air right up through those can lights, which escapes into the attic. So the more can lights you have and you don't seal the holes with foam or anything, you're going to create energy loss in a home. Any penetrations in the ceiling, we don't think about that. We think about walls, we think about the insulation in our attic, but you have the conditioned space of the home, which is where we live, which is the ceiling down, and you have unconditioned space, which is typically an attic. And any penetration between that drywall into the attic is an area that you want to make sure you seal or work hard to keep the air from going through there.
Okay, so not only the can lights, but any kind of ceiling vents, like in the bathroom, that we need to consider those as well, yes?
Absolutely, and here in Florida, and a lot of utility companies offer rebates for homeowners to have the ductwork sealed properly, especially all those little duct vents that are in your ceiling that you never think about. When they're installed in new construction, sometimes they're not sealed exactly the way you might want them, so if you have a contractor come in after the fact, they can certainly seal around those and keep that air from escaping up into the attic.
Excellent. I love it when somebody mentions a rebate.
Yes, rebate. Rebates are great. And
so,
you know,
not only can you save money over the long term by having it done, but there are lots of energy companies that will give you some money to fix the problem right now.
absolutely, and they have rebates for replacing that old inefficient air conditioner with a higher efficiency one. They have great instant rebates for that as well, and that helps keep the utility companies from having to, you know, increase their power output to supply more homes. So it keeps their costs down. So it's a win-win benefit for both the consumer and the energy companies.
Okay, excellent. You know what? That makes me think of kind of a little side question. At what point, as far as the age of our AC unit or the age of our home, when should we think about replacing it? You know, at what point did the air conditioning units start becoming more efficient, that anything older than that maybe we should look at replacing?
Well, here recently in the last few years, we got hit with a double whammy, and one of that was the old refrigerant called Freon is no longer being manufactured in new air conditioning systems. It had the chlorofluorocarbons in it, and the government decided they were going to outlaw that, so they don't make those anymore. But many of us still have air conditioning systems that use that refrigerant. That refrigerant has gotten very expensive. So if you have an 8, 9, 10-year-old system and you have to replace it with a part that went with the old Freon, it can be very expensive. So when you're thinking about replacing, you really look at a cost-benefit analysis. 10 years is a kind of a good point to look at, because most of your warranties are going to end after 10 years. So after 10 years, if your system is 10 years old or older, you really want to consider repair versus replace. And a good contractor will give you that opportunity. They'll say, this is how much it costs to repair, but if we replace it with all the rebates and the energy savings you're going to get annually, plus you're not going to have expensive repairs for the next 10 years, it can really, help you decide whether to go with that replacement. And I know it's not an exact answer that you might be looking for, but remember, in Florida on the coast, we might have a system that barely makes it 10 years, but if you lived in New Hampshire or in the Northwest, your system could last 20 years. It just depends on the amount of runtime that system has to go through. And again, in the South, we have a lot of runtime on air conditioning system.
Okay, good to know. Let's see. We kind of started to address this, but I want to go into it a little bit further, because you mentioned the solar heating aspect of how much this really taxes our AC systems. And I wanted to ask you about covering windows and providing shade, and what are some good tips there? Again,
as I mentioned, putting a film on the window, they have a bunch of different kinds of film you can get, will help reduce the solar heat gain on that window and still not obstruct your view out the window. Overhangs on buildings, blinds, curtains, they all help to keep the heat out of the home. Even planting, as I mentioned, a shade tree or a bush that's going to block the sun from coming in on that particular side of the house, usually the east or the west side, because that's when you have the morning or the evening with the sun coming in. It's going to be your peak solar times of the day when the heat's coming in through the windows. That can go a long way to save as well. And barring replacing windows, I mean, obviously we'd all love to have triple pane glass and insulated, but it can be very expensive to replace your windows.
Okay, so that porch that has a shade over it that's giving shade to the back side of all of the windows along, that's actually a good thing to have, huh?
Oh, it's a great thing. Absolutely.
All right, and you're going to giggle at this one. When I was growing up in southern Oklahoma, and there were a string of years that we had triple-digit heat, summer after summer after summer. And yeah, it was kind of ghetto and a little bit redneck, but my dad used to put aluminum foil on the windows on the worst side of the house because the heat outside was just so bad those years.
That's not so bad. That predates the invention of window film. So he kind of did the same thing that we're doing today, something to reflect that heat back out of the home. And you can't see through it, so it's kind of the ultimate of that, or a window, some sort of a shutter, but does the same thing, maybe not as efficiently as some of the products we have today.
Sure, but if you need a quick solution, and granted a really cheap solution, it does do the trick, however unsightly.
Absolutely. Anything to keep the heat from penetrating inside the home through the glass is going to help.
Well, and that also speaks to just behaviors and things that we do, because most of us have blinds or curtains or something over the windows, and really saving money can be just as simple as closing the blinds or pulling the curtains, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Close the blinds. A lot of people walk out of the house, they don't even think about it, and they leave the blinds open, just like they leave the lights on. And the more you do to save energy and think about that, especially on those really hot days, it'll go a long way to reducing your energy costs. And a funny anecdote, I have a lot of customers who, in the summertime, they want their air conditioning to be 70 degrees or less, but in the wintertime they want it to be 78 or more. When they really can't get it right. Ideally, you want to switch that around where you kind of keep the temperature around 78 in the summer and keep it lower in the winter. But people are fickle and they like what they like. But controlling that thermostat will go a huge way towards saving on your energy bill.
Actually, that was the next question I wanted to ask you. What kind of tips do you have for thermostat management, that kind of stuff? Is there a good temperature to set it at that kind of helps save us some money? So take it away. I mean, you're leading me along at this point.
I'm sorry. They, as I mentioned, 78 is a great temperature for the summer. But again, it's about humidity and temperature. 78 degrees in some areas, might, like in Florida, to keep the temperature at 78. All the utility companies recommend that. It's a very comfortable temperature, but you balance that with the humidity in the home. You might have to turn it a little lower to get more of the humidity out. Okay. They have some great thermostats today, programmable thermostats that will fit your lifestyle, so you can preset those, and you don't have to constantly pushing the temperature up or down. They have, during the work week, you can have it scheduled one way, and the weekend will provide another schedule. Something that's going to match your active lifestyle. If you're at home and you work at home, or you're stay at home all the time, just set it at one temperature and leave it. Today also they have Wi-Fi enabled thermostats. So you could be flying in on a plane and check your temperature, raise it up, lower it. If there's any real changes in the temperature at the home, it'll send you a little tweet, if you will, send you a message and let you know that there's a problem at home. So the technology has come a long way, especially with thermostats, and they're very easy to use. They used to be kind of cumbersome in programming, but I think you'll find today that they're very easy to manipulate and very cost effective.
All right. Yeah, that does lead me to ask, because on the one side, it seems very logical to want to set the house maybe a little bit warmer on the days that nobody's there, that kind of thing, but then sometime along the way, you're going to come back home, you're going to want the AC to kick on. Is there a loss in the benefit of really letting the house kind of get a bit toasty during the day when nobody's there, and then have the AC kick on and have to cool it all back down? Or is that really an efficient way to do it?
Right. So what you're asking me is it less expensive just to leave it at one temperature instead of making the system work really hard to lower the temperature to get it back down to a comfortable temperature when you come home? And the answer to that is quite simple. The thermostats today and the systems that the air conditioning systems are many of them are variable speed and multi-stage products, which allows them to cool your house down very quickly and very efficiently in a very short period of time. So to answer your question, today's technology allows us to let that temperature rise up in the home, setting that thermostat so it's already at that temperature when we come in the house. If you set the temperature at 78 at 5 o'clock, when you walk into the house at 5 o'clock, it should be 78. It doesn't start to cool it off at 5 o'clock. They're very intelligent thermostats, and it will save you money by letting the temperature rise up during the day and only cooling it off at night.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and just to follow up, remember, when you come home at night, the heat load is not as big on the house either, so it's going to take longer or shorter time for it to cool that home down as well.
That actually leads me to another behavioral question, because as part of the thermostat management and kind of the heat load issue in the house, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was just heat generating activities, like cooking with the oven or running the dryer. And I know that you had some things to say about venting in particular with those two items as well. So, are there particular times of day that maybe we ought to lay off on running the dryer or cooking, a great big roast, and maybe wait until the sun goes down when, number one, the AC is not demanding so much of the power in the first place, and it's a lot easier for the AC to take care of the additional heat load because you're doing things that are generating heat in the house.
Right, absolutely. If you're cooking it during the middle of the day and you have a hood that exhausts the temperature outside the home, obviously it's taking that conditioned air with it. So if the air conditioner is on, it's going to have to work twice as hard to cool the house back down. So yeah, to save your cooking time for the evening when the heat load is not as great, is going to keep your air conditioner from working as hard. Again, saving you a little bit of time and money there. And venting is extremely important in the home as well. We talked about the bathroom. Let's talk about the kitchen. You're cooking, you're creating heat, creating odors. It's very important to have an exhaust system that's going to be able to take those that heat, that exhaust, that humidity, the grease, and get that out of the living space. And the same with the dryer. You want to make sure your filters are clean on the dryer so it's not having to work too hard to push the hot air outside the home. If the lint backs up, it's just going to put the hot air in the laundry room, and again, your system is going to have to compensate for that.
Okay, so again, shut your blinds, shut your curtains, and wait to run the laundry until after dark, right?
Absolutely. And if you have a fireplace, be sure you seal the flue off during the summertime, because that air it takes that air conditioning right out through the chimney. So that's another area that you want. We don't have many fireplaces in Florida, but some of our viewers may.
Excellent tip. Thank you. All right. Seasonal maintenance chores. What do homeowners in particular need to be doing on a fairly regular basis to make sure that we're not overtaxing and we're not running the risk of something breaking down?
Several things they can do. Replacing your filters on a regular basis is very important. If you allow them to become impacted, it's going to tend to make your system freeze up, or basically, let's just say not function properly. It's going to increase your energy costs, and you're just not going to get cool from the system. That's the first place you want to go look. And if you have a disposable filter, make sure you put a good quality filter in there and change it on a regular basis. All air conditioning systems create condensation. That condensation is the humidity that it's taken out of the home, and it travels from the air conditioner through some PVC pipes to the outside of the home. So you want to make sure you have a good flow of water out by your outdoor unit, which is where the drains are usually located. Make sure the water's flowing good, that you're not having anything backing up, any water backing up into the home. And you can take a water hose and blow out the drain lines. You can take a shop vac and suck out the debris that might be accumulating inside that line set through the wintertime when you're not using it. Those are simple tests. Make sure your dryer vent is clean, exhausting properly. If you have a hood for your kitchen, everybody forgets to pull those out and clean them. Throw them in the dishwasher. Some you can put in the dishwasher. It'll get the grease cleaned off of them. You reinstall them. Make sure your exhaust fans in your bathrooms are actually working well and connected in the attic, so they are venting the air to the outside and not just dumping it in the attic.
Okay. Well, I have a few personal horror stories about the whole condensation drainage, and just about every home I've ever owned, as a matter of fact, we've had something happens where, the drainage system got backed up. I've got a puddle of water happening right around the interior portion of the AC unit. I have had to replace carpet. I've had to call out maintenance guys. I have had more headaches with that one little thing. And it wasn't until just like the last couple of years ago that I learned a few tips and tricks that would have saved me so much pain and anguish. What are some of the things that we can do to make sure that that's not happening to us? Is there anything that we can put in that drainage line on a regular basis to kind of keep it clean? What should we be doing?
We recommend that. Great question. They make a product that you can put in the drain pan to help dissolve some of the algae and the bacteria that grows in the drain pan underneath your system to help it flow better to the outside. You can hook up a hose to try and push water through the system, through your drain line as well. But what we're talking about, some of the experiences you've had and many customers have, is when the water backs up. No matter what you've tried to do, no matter how careful you've been, there are those occasions where water's going to back up. Maybe a lizard or a frog crawled into the drain, it's clogged, it's going to back up. So,
that's pretty extreme to have an animal in there.
Oh, that happens, trust me. One of the great things you can get, and today in Florida it's code, it's called a safety switch. It actually goes on the drain line inside the home. So when water backs up inside that drain pan, let's say for some reason your drain is clogged, it'll flip that float switch, causing it to shut down the air handler before you have major water damage in your home. And that's so important. Most homeowners don't consider that, but ask your contractor, your AC maintenance guy, if you have one. If you're not sure, let him check and see if you have one. They're not expensive to get installed into your home, and that small amount of money can go a long way for saving you literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in drywall repair, ceiling repair, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
As you've
Actually, now that you mention that, I can recall both a home we owned in the Oklahoma City area and one that we owned in West Palm Beach, Florida. Again, we had the dripping issue. We had water in the floor. The drain was clogged up. It just wasn't flowing the way it's supposed to. And in both instances, when the maintenance guy came out to get us all cleared back up and working the way we were supposed to, each time they installed that little switch in the drain line for us.
Right.
So, nice little handy tool.
Yes.
Except when they go on the fritz and keep cutting the AC off. Right. I've had an issue where the switch went on a fritz and it was like, I can't win for losing.
Exactly. But, at least you're saving some water damage. But if that happens, at least you know, hey, I've got a problem with my drain. Let's get that fixed, and then we shouldn't have any more problems of it shutting off.
Right. I'd much rather be warned by the AC being off for a little while than a puddle of water in the floor.
And a lot of those, I will tell you, you can pull the cap off yourself on those safety switches and see if water's backed up inside of there, and you can put it back in, and it'll reset, and everything will be fine.
Okay, good to know. My last question for you. What should we do to avoid summer-related repairs? So, we've done the things we ought to do as far as changing the filters and just the basic blah blah mundane stuff, but the things break every once in a while. What should we be doing to think beyond just the regular maintenance stuff?
Well, a great thing to do is have the system properly maintained and get a maintenance done. A lot of companies offer them. They're priced usually very reasonable, and if you get them done before the cooling season starts in the spring, before it gets too hot, you can save a lot of money on these maintenances. And a good company, good technician will come out and identify any potential problems you might have before summer hits. There's all sorts of mechanical parts in the air conditioning system that could potentially break on you. And another great thing about that is if you have a technician identify a part while it's still in warranty, you're going to save money by getting that part replaced before your system goes out of warranty. And of course, saving you the headache of having to go without air conditioning on a 100-degree day is priceless.
Indeed. That kind of covers all the questions I had. Are there any other tips, hints, tricks that maybe I might have missed asking you about?
You were very thorough. I can't think of anything, but like maintenance is everything. Just like you maintain your car, you maintain your air conditioner. It's one of the most expensive appliances you have in your home, and so many people neglect them until they break. So
yeah, until you get like a $900 repair bill for. I've had one of those too. So
crazy. Yeah. You're absolutely.
I'm not even sure. It's been so long ago. All I remember was we spent that much money on it. I can't even remember why it was. It was something major with the compressor, I think.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right. But again, a lot of times, some of those a huge bill like that could be avoided by getting your system maintained early. Maybe they notice it's not working properly. Maybe some leads are coming off of the compressor. It could be small parts too. They could find something that's very minor, a capacitor or a contactor, not very expensive, but again is going to shut your system down in the summer when you want it the most.
All right, very good. Mr. John McMillan, I appreciate so much you spending some time with us for Save Time, Save Money Saturday.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me, Michelle.
Have a great one.
You too. Bye-bye.